Hello and welcome to the Romance Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin and Morgan Brice. And tonight we are talking about falling in love in autumn. What's so special about it? What makes us think about love and cuddles and snuggles, and why is all that better with a little bit of autumn in the air or anytime? So before we launch into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Becky.
Oh, number one, huh? Okay, my name is Becky Turner. I write contemporary, sweet, small town romance. I'm based here in South Carolina, and I'm very happy to be with you guys.
All right, Miski.
Hi, I'm Missy Harris. I write contemporary male romance with interracial and military characters. I have decided to just try my hand at everything that flies into my head. So I also write small town romance. I've done 2 paranormal shifters and a fairy tale retelling. So I guess there's almost nothing Miski won't touch.
Very nice. Layla, how about you?
Kind of like Miski, I write MMM, and MMMM romances. I've got biker boys, I've got rocker boys, I've got small town.
Counting on my fingers, all those M's.
Wolf shifters. I've done the small town. I've done the fairy tale retelling. Right now, I'm really focusing on my wolf shifters, my biker boys, and my rocker boys. But that doesn't mean there won't be a few MMA books sneaking in.
Chantal.
Hi, I'm Chantal Mayer, and I write MM and MMM, but no MMMM.
Or MMA. We have a lot of M's floating around here.
And I actually write with my co-author Susan Scott Shelley, and we started writing together about 2 years ago. I don't know, I've lost track. And we are just finishing up a recreational rugby series with our guys, and we're starting some new series for the next year.
Nice. Nancy.
I'm Nancy Northcott. In addition to romance, I write historical fantasy and science fiction. But in romance, I write a broad range of things, like several people here do, because I like to read a lot of different things. I'm currently reissuing contemporary paranormal romances, and I also have a romantic suspense series going.
Laura.
I'm Laura Ashwood. I write small town contemporary romance. I write historical Western romance and women's fiction. Sweet. Happy to be here from Minnesota.
Maggie.
I'm Maggie Blackbird, and I write male, female, and male, contemporary and historical romance featuring Canada's Indigenous people.
Very good. And I'm Gail Martin and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. So let's look at what is it about the change of seasons, fall, pumpkin spice, if I dare mention it, that makes us think of love. And bonus points if you want to mention anything you've written that takes place in autumn. Miski.
Well, it's not out yet because, characters, they're such schmucks. But the 3rd book in my series is Damage Controlled, and it takes place in the fall. Why? Because I think cooler weather is good for cuddling. I do. And, some of my best feelings come out in the fall. I'm an old East Coast New Englander girl. I'm used to all the colors in the leaves, and there's something about walking hand in hand under those trees with all the colors falling down on you. Yeah, I'm very visual and super romantic, and I just think that things that involve fireplaces, falling down in snow, something I would never do, just are very romantic, very, you know what I'm trying to say, right?
I do. I like all of that. How about you, Layla?
Well, I'm starting to feel like Miski and I are the same person. I went to high school
We're
in Massachusetts,
twinses.
college in Vermont, so I'm also an East Coast New England girl. I just happened to be residing in Iowa at the time, and I miss the color changes. They change here, but nothing as spectacular as like the Vermont mountains.
Oh, no.
So a huge chunk of my books are set in the fall, my wolf shifters especially. You know, you've got to get that foliage changing and the wolves actually cuddling in the bed of leaves. But I've got some contemporaries that are also set in fall because I love starting the fire pit out back and barbecuing. And it's just too hot to do that in summer. The dog and I lay out and just enjoy the leaf pile and walk in the woods and take photos, and all of that stuff just kind of winds up in my books.
Okay. Chantal.
Well, I like fall. I like writing about fall because I feel like it's the perfect weather. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. I don't have to worry about my characters having gloves and scarves or if they're out walking that they're sweating to death because it's so hot. So I love it. I love like jeans and a t-shirt or a sweater. I just think it's and I feel like and I love a nice glass of red wine in the fall. So like I feel like that is
My kind of girl.
I know I feel like
Yep.
that like so I just like, and the humidity is, you know, I live outside of Philadelphia, so you know, in the fall the humidity has died down and it's just, you can have the windows open. It's, I don't know. And as Miski and Layla have already said, like, you know, it's just, you can cuddle.
Nancy?
Well, I agree with everything everybody has said so far. But I also think there's something about the crispness in the air in the fall, especially as you get later into the fall, that kind of, in a way, perks people up and energizes it. And it sort of, I think, energizes our interactions with each other, including romantic interactions. And it's also the arrival of fall and the changing of the leaves and the dropping of the leaves are reminders that the year's almost over. And so if there's something that you wanted to do this year, you're running out of time. And sometimes that is to fish or cut bait with a person who's important to you. And I should have said that the romances I write are female, male. I meant to specify and I forgot. So.
Okay. Laura.
Fall is my favorite season. There isn't anything about fall that I don't like. Bugs are gone finally, the leaves. And so writing fall is a lot of fun. I know that fall festivals are a lot of fun. Going pumpkin hunting, going corn maze. You know what some of you have already said with the cuddling, obviously, bonfires and the changing of the leaves. You know, in Minnesota, fall can sometimes only last 5 minutes. It seems summer this year quit, I think, the day fall started, which is just amazing because we haven't had a true fall for quite a long time. But I'm looking out my window right now at the leaves changing, and it's kind of, for me, it's almost like the gateway to Christmas. And I love Christmas too. But the small town festivals are a lot of fun for me to write. Well, I love doing that.
They're fun to go to too in real life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Best food ever. Maggie.
Yes.
Yeah, fall. I like it. I like the change of the cooler weather. I'm a winter person. I love winter. And fall, you know, it's the perfect walking time in the morning. I walk my dogs every morning and it's at 0 degrees. That's Celsius. I speak in Celsius. And it's just perfect. It's not too hot, not too cold. It's just the right amount of weather. For the Ojibwe people also, it's the time of the harvesting of the wild rice. It's also time for the feast. And the one book born for this is when Mandamin makes his appearance. He's the corn spirit of the Ojibwe people. So I incorporated a lot of that into two books that I have. One is the Canadian Thanksgiving. Ours takes place early October. And the other one is a historical time travel romance. And there's a lot about the fall that takes place in it too, when she goes into a corn maze and goes back in time to see her ancestors. So fall's
Cool.
fun. I like.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I love fall. I can appreciate how pretty summer is and getting to go to the beach. And spring is usually sort of rainy and mushy, so we sort of skip over that. And winter can be cold, but fall is just kind of perfect. It's cool enough you feel like going out and doing all the wonderful things everybody's mentioned. There are all those foods that you start getting that you only get in the fall, whether it's pumpkin spice or pumpkin pie or, you know, all those mulled cider, all those good things kind of go with walking hand in hand with somebody, being outdoors, maybe, you know, being at a fire pit. I always have to laugh when I'm reading a book and it's set in the summer and both people are smushed up together, sleeping in bed on top of each other practically. And I'm going, how are
Oh,
you not
yeah.
dying from the heat and sweating? Real people don't do that. No. But in fall, you know, bring on those blankets, snuggle up. That's good stuff. So yeah, I am all on board with fall. And the new book that I've just got out, Sins of the Fathers, is set in the Appalachian Mountains in Western North Carolina in the fall. So it's, I just love that season. How about you, Becky?
Well, my series opener, Home to Stay, was set around right before Thanksgiving. But the thing I like about fall, to me, it's I love life cycles. And to me, fall is a very significant one because it's so colorful. So it makes you sit up and say, okay, this is a change. But I like the promise that each season brings that the next one's going to come. And that to me is significant. And that promise kind of ties in to family and home and Thanksgiving. And that's the type of things I try to bring into my stories.
Okay. So we mentioned all these sights and sounds and tastes of autumn. Do you write about any special fall foods, or do you bring in any kind of food or drink that's particular to different seasons in your work, Layla?
I love to cook. So sweet potato pie and hard cider, and we've got vineyards that are not far from here. So they've got all their beautiful fall wines coming out. I put a lot of that into my stories, but also the fall harvest. You know, being here in Iowa, I am literally in small town corn country. So I do try to bring some of the harvest things, even if it's just, you know, the garden that the characters have planted is out there, or, you know, starting to make those s'mores around the bonfire is a fun one to get in. And of course, those hard ciders while you're out there making the s'mores.
Mm-hmm. Chantal?
Yeah, so I realized that I write a lot about food because I think that's my love language. So it's my character's love language. And I do always think about like what time of year it is and what foods, you know, are they going to be having, like, you know, a hearty soup, or are they, you know, having chips and guac or something, you know, like I think about, I do think about what time of year it is, and what foods they would be eating or what they would be drinking. So the season definitely plays into that. And fall has so many, like you said, of those great flavors, you know, and this, like, you know, there's apple picking. So there's, you know, there's so many places like where I live where you can go pick apples. So there's tons of things you can do with apples, you know. And so I think about that. Yeah.
Okay. Nancy?
I have 3 books that are set in the fall. The Deadly Orb and Embattled Mage are set in the fall. Only one of them has anything to do with food. That's the third one, which is Romantic Suspense. It's set as part of the Canham Castle anthology series originally. So it's set in England and it ends on Guy Fawkes Night, bonfire night. And there are special cakes that people eat for bonfire night, which I'm totally drawing a blank on the name of, but I looked it up and and enjoyed finding out, what do they do for this holiday other than have a big bonfire. So that was fun. And the book that's not out yet in this series, the Mage series I'm reissuing, is set at Thanksgiving. And so it has all the traditional Thanksgiving yummy food in it. But I don't cook very well. I'm not a very good cook. I like to eat. So I don't immediately go to what could the characters be having, because somebody has to fix it. I have one character who's a really good cook, and that's me, like projecting and living vicariously, because that's never going to be me. And she likes to fix all kinds of seasonal things. I just like the other characters every now and again to eat them.
Okay, fair enough. Laura?
I love to add food into my books, partly because I love food and it's fun to try to come up with, things you can share recipes with the readers too, and that's fun. But it's also fun to watch characters interact with food too. I mean, you can do a lot of playful things with that. But some of the things that some of you have already said too, like with the garden and trying to pull in some of the harvest stuff. I've done that. Thanksgiving is in fall. And it's always fun to have, a Thanksgiving scene, because not only are you bringing in the food, you're bringing in the family. And those kind of dynamics can be really interesting, not always necessarily fun, but definitely interesting. And fall is, one of the things that I look forward to a lot, because I love to cook too, is fall is soup season. And there's so many different kinds of soup, and nothing, we talked earlier about all the kinds of food that we like, but nothing warms the soul like soup does on a cold fall day too. So I love to do that too.
Okay. How about you, Maggie?
Yeah, fall and food. I was actually told sometimes I get a little carried away with characters eating. But it's something I do like to incorporate into it, though. Same with the wild food. I have characters going out. This is the time of the year when they go hunting, where somebody's bringing in a deer to cook, or a moose, or partridge, or anything like that. To add to their stew or whatever. It has a lot to do with the bannock and the harvesting and the wild rice as well. And then there's the fall feast that takes place at the roundhouse. So it's always fun. There's always some kind of food gathering happening in my novels. It's just part of the culture, the way it is. There's always some food thing going on the res. So it's there quite a bit of the time.
I love, we were talking about different events that happen in the fall, and a lot of county fairs happen in the fall. And there's like nothing better than fair food. I mean, there's probably nothing worse for you than fair food too, but there's nothing better than fair food, whether it's funnel cakes or waffle cones. Or the fair that I grew up going to had there was a local church that always did a fundraiser, and their ladies would come together and bake like 35 different kinds of homemade pie. And so any kind of pie you wanted, you could find it there. And so fair food to me is definitely a fall thing. Chili, anything you can make in a crock pot, especially if your characters are busy out, chasing paranormal spooks or something, and I also love bringing in regional food. A number of our series, my series, are set in northwestern Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of Polish and Hungarian tradition there. And so things like pierogies and halushka are just such good fundamental things to eat on a cold day. And one of my books, Lucky Town, my two main characters go home to the Pittsburgh home of one of them, who is he comes from this big Italian family. He's the youngest of 10. The other character is an only child from this very aloof kind of upper crust family, and he's just totally overwhelmed by this mass of people and hugs and food and more food, but it wins him over. So yeah, Becky.
I like to incorporate food almost in all my stories. I always add a recipe. And matter of fact, I'm putting together a recipe book. I didn't start cooking until I was in my 50s, which I feel like when you're in the time when you're raising children and working, there's just not time. So you just do fast food. But once I had an empty nest, I actually enjoyed it. So I incorporated the food in there. And I agree with Maggie, you can do some fun stuff with it. And for my my Thanksgiving story, I use s'mores, and one of my favorite things is to add to s'mores is peanut butter. And I don't know if you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
peanut butter on your s'mores, but peanut butter and almonds, and then the chocolate, and then the marshmallow. And I had a great time writing that the story. Just as you can tell, I really like to eat it too.
Well, and Gail, you make a great point about fair food. We have the fair around here, and one of the things that I found myself making a joke out of in one of my books was deep fried gummy bears.
Deep fried every.
They fried
Yeah.
gummy bears.
Wow.
It was at the same booth that had the Twinkies, and it's like I'd seen deep fried Twinkies, but never deep fried gummy bears. Yeah, that was a different one.
Making my chest hurt.
Yeah. I think we saw deep fried butter one time. I thought, you have
Oh,
got to be
yes, I've
kidding.
seen
What do
that,
you
yeah.
do with that?
Oh my gosh.
Well, my men don't eat. They drink lots of wine, but they don't eat. You know? And a funny story. I did my first fairy tale retelling for an anthology called Something Wicked. And it's out for pre-order now. It'll drop, I think, the 31st. But one of the things that we had to do, because there's all these bonuses we wanted to give the readers, was everybody needed to send in a recipe, either from their book or influenced by their book. And I have an air fryer. So I said, okay, one of the things I like to do is air fry turkey wings. Unlike Becky, I cooked nonstop when my kids were growing up because I didn't want them to have junk food, but my kids are old enough that I'm on my way to great grandchildren now. And so I pulled out a recipe for turkey wings and called it Fire Dragon air fried turkey wings and gave it to them. I have no recipes. And my characters, I mean, they go to restaurants and there's a scene in Damage Controlled where Teddy has his whole family in this restaurant. But I just realized I didn't say anything about what they ordered or ate. It was just the conversation that Teddy wanted to have. Of course, everybody had booze, but
I have an editor that will send my manuscript back with all kind of notes if I do that. That goes, what did they eat? What did they drink? Did they have
and
dessert?
Sandy is like that. So I know I'm gonna have to go back and edit that because it'll be what does it look like? What did they eat? Did they like it? And I'm like, who gives a shit?
You want to pull us into the moment here, Miski.
I know, but you know what? I've got 5 books out, and I sometimes read my reviews, and I've not read one review that said that restaurant made me want to go there. All I wanted to know is what happened between the men when they left.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What are your favorite tropes? You know, we all write all kinds of things from hurt comfort to second chance to, you know, father with a young kid, all kinds of tropes. What are some of your favorite tropes, Chantal?
Well, I do love Friends to Lovers. Like that's one of my all-time favorites. I just love because I feel like there's so much you can do with it. Like there's all this history and there's already a relationship and seeing how that relationship changes. I adore that. I also like Enemies to Lovers though, which actually a book that Susan and I wrote called Smolder. It's set in fall, and it is an Enemies to Lovers, because again, I like that you have this relationship that's one way and it changes. I like to see, those dynamics. So those are two of my favorites. But really, I like anything. Like like I want to read it all, so I don't.
I understand that, Nancy.
I like to pretend I don't have a favorite trope, but if you look at the books I've written, it's clear that I do. And I tend to, the ones that recur or have recurred are Second Chance at Love and Friends to Lovers. And sometimes they kind of, depending on the situation of the characters, they kind of mix up. I like to read Fated Mates if it's done really well. It's like, because if it's not done really well, at the end of chapter 1, you're going, well, isn't the story over at this point? Yeah. If it's done really well, for example, Nalini Singh does it really well, then you still have that suspense and that edginess through there. And I like to read Cinderella stories, especially if they've got a twist on them. Like if it's not always the woman who's Cinderella, sometimes it can be the guy who's Cinderella. So those are probably, just off the top of my head, the ones that I read and write the most.
Okay. Laura?
I like forced proximity, especially in the historical Westerns. That's fun. Friends to Lovers, Return to Hometown is another one of my favorites. Writing small town romance. There's so many different reasons that people come back to town, and whether they want to or not, getting them there it can be a lot of fun. And then my absolute favorite is Single Parent, though. I think almost all of my books have little kids in them, which is kind of weird because I really don't like kids very much, but don't tell my kids that, but they're all adults now, so it's okay. I think maybe it's now I'm a grandma, dating myself, but having grandkids is a little bit different, and it's just a lot of fun writing the little characters in there. They had a lot.
Okay. That's because you can send your grandkids home.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Okay, I'm done. You can go.
Fill them with sugar and put them out the door.
Yep.
Maggie?
I like Second Chance. That's probably one of my favorites. You'll see it a lot in all the books I wrote. I also love Enemies to Lovers. I'm a big fan of that one. I've used that one a few times. And I like reading I read a lot of historical. So I always love that Marriage of Convenience when it comes to reading historical. And I even like to see it in contemporary romance too. It's kind of fun. It's nice watching them end up married and they're trying to, make it work. And I like following the relationship and how it builds. So that's a fun one. I don't write it, but oh wait, no, I did. I wrote one. It just came out in August. But I do, like I said, Marriage of Convenience is my favorite. But I also like Enemies to Lovers, as long as they're not getting too mean with each other. They're at least respectable with each other.
Okay. I am a huge sucker for hurt comfort. I totally melt when one guy is hurt and the other guy is confessing his deepest feelings, which he hasn't been able to do until now. We're trying to get them both out of a jam, or, I making their last stand. I love that. I also love forced proximity and I love Friends to Lovers. I mean, those are just three of my all-time favorites. So there's going to be a little hurt comfort in all of mine, but everybody gets through it okay. Becky?
Well, you know, for a while I didn't know I had a theme either, Nancy. It took me a little bit while, and I looked back at my books and I said all of them are about either coming home or building a home, which is kind of odd. Although I was raised in a very small town, like 6,500, I would never go there back there to live. But all of my characters are in that particular mode, if you will. And I love taking them back to town. And then there's a lot of things, like she said, there's a lot of drama that you can do with that. But I've used all kinds of tropes, and I've had medical, I was a rancher, so obviously I've got a lot of ranch stories, and oh my God, medical, military, workplace romance, friend to lovers. I like second chance. I like to do the seasoned romance, and I'm currently working on a Christmas story where a grandmother is forced to raise a small child. And, you know, I see a lot of that today. And so my critique partner said, let's do, you know, why don't you do something like that? So it's a little bit different. So I like to do the seasoned romance too. And that really shakes it up a little bit, because it's a whole lot different being a grandmother than it is a mother. But to suddenly be the mother when you're really the grandmother, I think it's been a fun ride, you know, to put the woman in that position. So, but I don't think there's anything that I don't like, to be quite honest with you. I'm not too much for mafia or that type of thing, and I don't like the violence, but I do love almost every trope.
Okay. Miski?
I only realized this year that there were tropes. My aim is to be as dramatic as possible. And I love retribution. I like to see the guy on the bottom wind up on top. You know, people, I guess it's hurt comfort. I'm just now learning what all these things are. Go figure. But I'm told I write hurt comfort and second chance. So I guess that's what I write. I just like the ordinary person. I write stories that you look at and say, wow, I know somebody like that, you know, and I haven't an idea in hell what you call that. But they, you know, the dogs in my story get their day. I also seem to have a lean towards animals and really strong mothers. I have a gun-toting mom. I have moms that'll slap the taste out your mouth defending their babies. And I didn't realize it until somebody brought it up. In every one of my stories, there's a mom involved, and she will cut a bitch over her children, you know. So I don't know if that's a trope, but my characters in my series are prior military, and they've gone through quite a bit.
Okay.
You know, my shifter story has a white leopard and it's a snow leopard and a white tiger, and they're considered abnormal in their squeaks. So that's me. If you're the odd man out, I'm writing your story.
Okay. Layla?
Hurt comfort is pretty much in all of my books. I seem to like tormenting my characters, but I also love the found family trope. So it's been a ton of fun to weave found family in with the rocker boys and the biker boys, because that's all people who have come together, you know, out of a shared love of something. And I've been able to weave that in with my wolf shifters too, because there's so many different types of tribes within the shifters. So when someone comes to a tribe that is all about making sure that everybody is fed and cared for and repairs are done and, you know, everything is, you know, proper on that pack land, that becomes another found family, especially from the characters who are coming in and maybe they weren't in the best, you know, pack before that, and maybe they were on the fringes. So I've kind of managed to weave those things into almost all of my stories. And then, of course, the second chance. I love the second chance romance. I have one where guy left town, just left on the night after graduation, didn't say anything to the person he was seeing, takes off, shows back up 12 years later for, you know, funeral. And the guy he left behind is the town librarian. And my guy has got a job at a repair shop. And all of a sudden, here's this new lease on this old relationship and it takes place in the fall.
Nice, nice.
Very good. Well, folks, we have blown through our time. So let's do a lightning round here to let everybody know where people can find you online. And if you have anything recent, new, upcoming, please tell us about it. Starting with you, Nancy.
You can find me at nancynorthcott.com. I'm most active on social media on Twitter, where I probably spend more time than is good for me. And I'm at Nancy Northcott there. And my newest release is Embattled Mage, which takes place in late October. There's not a lot of fall in it because it's South Georgia and it's kind of warm in South Georgia in the fall. But that's the latest. It was fun to write, and this has been a fun evening. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Laura.
You can find me at lauraashwood.com. I'm on social media at all the usual places at Laura Ashwood Books. And my latest release was actually a women's fiction, not set in fall. It was Summer at Bluefin Bay. The sequel to it is Sunset at Bluefin Bay, which will be set in the fall. And it was awesome to be here tonight with you guys.
Great. Maggie?
You can find me at maggieblackbird.com. All my social media, you can find it there as well. And my upcoming release, October 14th, is Back Where You Belong, a male-male second chance romance.
Nice. Chantal?
You can find me at chantalmayer.com. You can also find me at shelleyandmayer.com. That's the website that Susan Scott Shelley and I have for our combined books. And we just released a book actually last week, a little novella called Swoon. It is not set in fall, but it's just a fun little quick read.
Okay. Layla?
Google Layla Dorine. I pop up. I'm on social media on just about every platform my kid could sign me up for. And I've got a website on Wix. I have 2 books coming out in October. One is just a few days away. It's book 3 of my Wolf Shifters called Death Growl. And it is mixing the Wolf Shifters, a metal band, and a biker club that protects the shifters.
Oh, wow.
I also have a Road to Rocktoberfest book coming out towards the end of October, Bleeding Dawn, more rocker boys, and this one is actually weaving 3 bands together. So talk about chaos.
Very cool. Miski?
I too have 2 books coming out. I can be found on miskiharris.com, or if you go Linktree/Miski Harris, you can find me on all the usual social media suspects. If that doesn't work, just tag Gail. She seems to be able to find me even when I'm not talking to anybody. I have a novella in an anthology. The anthology is called Something Wicked. It's a retelling of the Grimm's fairy tales. Mine is called Juniper Tree, which is a retelling of the juniper tree. And then book 3 in my Don't Ask, Don't Tell series was supposed to be out early October. It's now looking more like November. The subject matter is kind of sensitive. One of my characters is trans. So that takes a lot of sensitivity reading and research and more reading, because I actually researched this book for a year. I don't want to offend anybody. So that's me in a nutshell. It'll probably be out, and I'm looking now towards like November after Thanksgiving, Black Friday kind of.
Okay, and Becky.
You can find me at beckyturner.com, and I spell my name with an E instead of a Y. I just released in June, I had Murphy's Choice, and that was one of my Murphy family saga stories, and the one I'm working about that I talked about with the grandmother and taking care of the grandchild is going to be my Christmas story if Becky can hurry and get her bottom together and finish it up. So it's supposed to be to my editor right before Thanksgiving. So I've got to hustle.
Okay. And I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbrice.com. I'm on all the social media. If you search by those names and you spell them right, you'll find me. The newest book is Sins of the Fathers, which is the second book in the Kings of the Mountain male romance series. And the next one coming up is Charon, which is the second book in the Night Vigil series. And that one is written under my Gail name, but the characters in all my modern worlds cross over with each other and know each other. So they also show up in a lot of my Morgan Brice books as well. But of course, you can usually find me here on Continual. So thank you all so much for being with us tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There'll be more romance coming up here on Continual. So we'll see you online.